the country is officially unveiling a major expansion of the Suez Canal. The massive public works project will have a big impact on international trade and global security.
Israel is pushing forward with a project many thought was impossible. A $55 billion canal that could challenge Egypt's Suez Canal and shake global trade to its core. This man-made waterway would cut through the desert, link two major seas, and give Israel control over one of the world's busiest shipping routes. Even more controversial is the proposed path, which runs straight through Gaza, raising questions about politics, power, and long-term intentions. Could this new canal truly replace the Suez and change the future of the Middle East?
Now it's one of the world's most important shipping routes, and it's blocked. A giant container ship ran aground in the Suez Canal after losing power.
Join us as we explore this shocking plan. The Suez Canal and Israel's plan. The Suez Canal has always been more than a strip of water. It is one of the most famous waterways in the world, but its story began long before modern ships existed. Stretching about 120 miles from Port Said on the Mediterranean Sea down to the city of Suez near the Gulf of Suez, it forms a line that separates mainland Egypt from the Sinai Peninsula. Today, it is owned and operated by the Suez Canal Authority and is meant to be open to ships of all nations, whether for trade or for war. But history shows that this openness has not always been guaranteed. The dream of linking the Mediterranean and the Red Sea is ancient. As early as 2000 BC, small canals connected the Nile to routes that led south, allowing trade between the seas. But a direct sea-to-sea canal seemed impossible. People believed the two bodies of water sat at different altitudes. But was it truly impossible? Let's find out. If that were true, building a lock-free canal would be dangerous or even disastrous. As a result, empires relied on land routes. Great Britain used long overland paths to move goods between Europe and its colonies in India and Pakistan. That changed in the 1830s, but thanks to the work of French explorer and engineer Linant de Belfond. He surveyed the Isthmus of Suez and discovered something remarkable. The Mediterranean and Red Seas were actually at the same level. This meant a direct canal could be built without locks. Construction began in 1859 at Port Said. It took 10 long years. Around 1.5 million laborers worked on the project, and many were forced laborers. Tens of thousands died from disease, exhaustion, and harsh conditions. Political unrest, colonial tensions, and the limits of old technology pushed the cost to $100 million, far beyond the original budget. Today, about 50 ships cross the canal every day, carrying over 300 million tons of goods. It is Egypt's economic lifeline and one of the most important trade routes on the planet. Around 10% of global trade squeezes through this narrow passage connecting the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea. Oil tankers, massive container ships, and essential goods all depend on this single channel. When something goes wrong there, the world feels it. We saw that clearly when the Ever Given got stuck and froze billions of dollars in trade. Egypt understands the power it holds. And the Suez Canal brings the country nearly $9.4 billion every year. It gives Cairo economic strength. It gives them leverage. It gives them influence over global shipping. But now, Israel has revived an old idea that could transform the region. A new canal that would challenge the Suez head-on. Imagine a 300-kilometer artificial waterway stretching across the Israeli desert, running parallel to Egypt's historic canal, and connecting the Mediterranean Sea to the Gulf of Aqaba and the Red Sea. Longer, deeper, more advanced, and possibly faster. Anyone who controls this second canal would control another major artery of global trade. Oil, grain, manufactured goods, everything that moves between Europe and Asia could one day flow through Israel instead of Egypt. This project, often called the Ben Gurion Canal, sounds like a modern invention, but the idea is surprisingly old. As far back as the mid-1800s, engineers were already imagining a canal that cut across what is now Israel. They believed it could be a powerful shortcut between the seas. In 1955, a British naval officer named William Allen suggested an ambitious plan to link the Red Sea, the Dead Sea, and the Mediterranean. He claimed it could be cheaper, safer, and more strategic than the Suez Canal. But the Suez was rising in importance, and Egypt's hold on the region was firm. So the idea faded away. Then, in 1994, Israel brought it back to life. The government announced plans for the Ben Gurion Canal, named after Israel's first prime minister, David Ben Gurion. He had long dreamed of turning the Negev desert into an economic powerhouse. A canal cutting across the desert fit perfectly into that vision. After that announcement, the project went quiet for years. But in 2021, it suddenly returned to the headlines. Israel stated publicly that construction could begin as early as that summer. It didn't happen, at least not publicly. But the timing raised eyebrows. Tensions were rising across the region. Global energy markets were unstable. And the Ever Given incident had just exposed how vulnerable the Suez Canal really was. In March 2021, a massive container ship traveling from China got lodged in the Suez Canal, leaving more than 100 ships stranded on both sides of this crucial trade route. The blockage halted global shipping for almost an entire week. When one ship can paralyze global trade for days, the world starts thinking about backup plans. A second canal, one that allows two-way traffic and can handle the largest ships on Earth, sounded like a very appealing alternative. On paper, the Ben Gurion Canal is massive. It would run about 293 kilometers, one-third longer than the Suez Canal. The price tag is huge, around $55 billion. But the potential revenue, an estimated $6 billion a year, would make it one of Israel's biggest economic assets. Unlike the Suez, which is cut mostly through sand, Israel's canal would carve through rocky desert. That could mean fewer collapses, fewer repairs, and perhaps a stronger, more stable structure. It would also be deeper and wider than the Suez Canal. Plans mention depths of around 50 meters and widths of about 200 meters, enough to handle the world's biggest ships, including supertankers over 300 meters long. And this project isn't just about trade. Israel envisions entire new cities rising along the canal's edges. Hotels, resorts, entertainment districts, and nightclubs. A new economic corridor carved right through the desert. But here is where the story turns dark. When you look at the most direct and efficient route for this canal, it passes straight through Gaza. Gaza is one of the most densely populated, politically complicated, and conflict-ridden regions in the world. The idea that such a valuable canal would cut through this land raises serious questions. Coincidence? Or something deeper? Many analysts argue that the location is not accidental. The canal would bring enormous strategic power to whoever controls its route. It would reshape borders, influence shipping, and shift political leverage in the Middle East. And if the project were ever built, it could challenge Egypt's hold on global trade in a way that has never happened before. Understanding the motivations behind Israel's proposed Ben Gurion Canal requires looking back at the long, complicated history of the Suez Canal and the conflicts around it. Keep watching to find out. The history of the Suez Canal. Events like the 1956 tripartite aggression and later shutdowns of the Suez Canal shocked global trade and exposed how fragile this single route could be. Every time the canal closed, even briefly, the world felt the impact. This history shows why an alternative route, especially one controlled by Israel, could carry huge strategic weight in a region that is constantly shifting. But before diving deeper, it helps to understand the name behind the project. David Ben Gurion, born in 1886 in Poland, was a central figure in the Zionist movement and is often called the founding father of Israel. He was known for being determined and ruthless. He supported actions by Zionist militias that pushed Palestinians off their land and encouraged mass Jewish immigration into Palestine. When Israel was established in 1948, he became its first prime minister and shaped the future of the new state. The canal proposal from the 1960s was named after him because it reflected his dream of transforming Israel, especially the desert regions, into a strong economic center. The original plan for the Ben Gurion Canal imagined a route connecting the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea. It would begin at the Gulf of Aqaba near the city of Eilat, then follow the Arava Valley along the border with Jordan for about 100 kilometers. After cutting between the Negev Mountains and the Jordanian highlands, the canal would curve westward before reaching the Dead Sea Basin. From there, it would turn north to avoid Gaza and finally connect with the Mediterranean Sea. It was an ambitious route, long, complex, and expensive. But there's a major issue. A connection between the two seas already exists. The Suez Canal in Egypt is a direct sea-level passage that has been the world's main shortcut between Europe and Asia for more than a century. It cuts shipping time dramatically, making it one of the most valuable waterways on the planet. The canal handles around 12% of global trade. In 2021, more than 20,000 ships passed through it, 10% more than the year before. By 2023, annual revenue reached a record $9.4 billion. Whoever controls the Suez Canal would hold enormous power over global shipping routes, oil transport, and grain supplies. It would reshape trade patterns worldwide. Some old proposals for the canal were extreme. At one point, the United States reportedly suggested using more than 500 nuclear bombs to blast a path through the Negev desert. Later ideas hinted at cutting costs by running the canal straight through Gaza. But as long as Palestinians live there, such a plan would face enormous political, humanitarian, and moral barriers. Since Israel's latest military campaign in Gaza began, life in the enclave has been turned upside down. Israel's heavy bombardment of northern Gaza pushed hundreds of thousands of Palestinians to flee south. Entire neighborhoods were destroyed before Israeli ground forces even entered the area. According to the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics, around 400,000 people were displaced from the north to the south. Another 800,000 stayed behind in areas north of Wadi Gaza. The attacks, mostly concentrated in the north, have killed more than 11,000 people, many of them women and children. The scale of destruction has raised serious concerns worldwide. While all of this was happening, the old idea of the Ben Gurion Canal, once set aside, began to reappear in discussions again. The concept had been abandoned for many years because of fears over radioactive contamination from earlier proposals and strong opposition from Arab states. But in recent years, political dynamics in the region have changed. One of the biggest shifts came with the Abraham Accords under the Trump administration. These agreements normalized ties between Israel and several Arab countries, including the United Arab Emirates. Suddenly, cooperation that once seemed impossible began to take shape. Right after normalization in 2020, Israel and the UAE made a deal to transport Emirati oil through an Israeli pipeline running from Eilat on the Red Sea to the Mediterranean coast. This would have offered a shortcut that bypassed traditional routes. However, Israeli environmental officials later blocked the plan, warning about the danger of oil spills and long-term ecological damage. Then, in September 2023, another major project was announced at the G20 summit, the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor. The plan would create a massive trade route, stretching from India across the Arabian Peninsula, through Dubai in the UAE, and into Israel's port of Haifa, before heading to Europe. The announcement came just weeks before the Hamas attack and the start of the Gaza war. Even after fighting broke out, cooperation did not stop. In December 2023, while Israel's invasion of Gaza was still underway, Israeli and Emirati business interests reached a new agreement, a land bridge linking Dubai to the port of Haifa. This move showed that economic ambitions were still advancing despite the conflict. With the Abraham Accords in the background and new regional partnerships forming, Ideas like the Ben Gurion Canal once again feel closer to reality. What would be the impact of the Ben Gurion Canal on Egypt and Israel's economy? Stay tuned. The effect of the Ben Gurion Canal on Israel and Egypt.
The country is officially unveiling a major expansion of the Suez Canal.
A man-made waterway running from the Mediterranean to the Red Sea would give Israel something far bigger than an economic boost. It would give the country immense geopolitical power. Control of such a canal would reshape not only Israel's relationship with Egypt, but also its position in global trade. Right now, Egypt holds a monopoly through the Suez Canal. That single waterway controls the flow of ships carrying goods, fuel, and military equipment between Europe and Asia. But if Israel built its own canal, that monopoly would break, and the consequences would reach far beyond the Middle East. For example, the U.S. military depends heavily on the Suez Canal for rapid movement between the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean. A canal controlled by Israel, one of America's closest allies, would give Washington a major strategic advantage. It would no longer rely on Egypt's decisions or political mood. Israel's canal would, in effect, become a U.S.-friendly superhighway for naval power. China would also feel the impact. Its Belt and Road Initiative relies on stable shipping routes that pass through the Suez Canal and the surrounding seas. A rival canal could disrupt these plans and introduce new costs, new risks, and new political pressures. Even critical choke points like the Strait of Hormuz, a passage that carries about 30% of the world's daily energy supply, could be affected. A new canal would shift shipping patterns across the entire region. This shows that the project is not simply a giant construction plan. It is a way of redrawing global power lines. But building such a canal would be incredibly difficult. The Negev desert is harsh, rocky, and dry. There is no river to follow, no natural path to widen. Engineers would need to cut deep into the ground for hundreds of kilometers. Early plans were so extreme that they suggested using hundreds of nuclear explosions to quickly carve out the canal. That idea was abandoned long ago, but it reveals how daunting the task truly is. Modern plans rely on traditional excavation. Dredging, drilling, and hydraulic engineering would all be needed, on a massive scale. Over 300,000 engineers, workers, and technicians would be recruited from around the world. Work would continue non-stop for at least 5 years. The final canal would not simply be a passage for ships. It would be a high-tech security corridor. Plans mention advanced surveillance cameras, underwater sensors, laser-guided ship tracking, and barriers capable of detecting weapons. Every vessel would be monitored from the moment it enters until the moment it leaves. Israel also claims its canal would outperform the Suez Canal. It would allow two-way traffic instead of single-lane convoys. This would reduce waiting times and cut the chances of major accidents like the Ever Given disaster. Logistically, the concept is impressive, but geopolitically, it is explosive. A new canal would bring Israel enormous wealth and global recognition, but it could devastate Egypt's economy and upset the delicate balance of power in the region. The Suez Canal is the core of Egypt's economy. It funds schools, hospitals, infrastructure, and many of the services ordinary Egyptians depend on every day. When ships move through the Suez, Egypt earns billions. Take even a small part of that traffic away, and the shock could shake Egypt's entire financial system. That is why the idea of Israel building a rival canal feels so threatening to Cairo. For Egypt, it is not just competition, it is a direct challenge to its economic survival. For Israel, however, the same project represents opportunity, influence, and a chance to reshape the regional order. And at the center of this struggle lies Gaza. Its location is almost perfect for the most efficient canal route. But politically, Gaza is a storm waiting to erupt. Any attempt to dig through or near the enclave would require total control over the land. That requirement has added fuel to long-standing conflicts and has deepened global debates about Israel's intentions. So when people ask whether the canal might be one of the real motives behind the ongoing conflict, the question no longer sounds strange. When you consider the timing, the decades-old proposals, and the potential benefits, the pieces begin to align. If Israel built this canal, it would gain economic independence from Egypt. It would hold greater military control over the Red Sea. It would possess a direct trade corridor linking Europe and Asia. And in doing so, Israel could bypass the Suez Canal and even disrupt parts of China's Belt and Road network. Meanwhile, Egypt would lose revenue, global relevance, and strategic importance. History shows that mega projects like this are rarely just construction plans. They are power plays. They reshape borders, alliances, and economies. But the idea is not simple. A canal of this scale could revolutionize transport. It could generate jobs, attract global investors, and turn Israel into a major trade hub. On the other hand, it could spark new wars, destroy economies, and push an already fragile region toward greater instability. So the question remains, is it worth the risk? Should the world continue building enormous projects that shift global power, or should we rethink how we protect and share vital trade routes? Israel has shown that it can achieve astonishing engineering feats. It has turned deserts into farmland and built world-leading desalination plants. The Ben Gurion Canal could become another miracle in that long list. But the real cost, political, human, and economic, is still unknown. Would this canal become a symbol of progress or the spark of another major conflict? Would it bring nations together through trade or tear them apart? Those questions make this story powerful and unsettling, because in the end, this is not only about Israel and Egypt. It is about global trade, energy routes, and the ongoing struggle over who gets to shape the future of the world's economy. What are your thoughts on Israel's plans to build a new canal? Let us know in the comments section below. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more. Also, click on the next video displayed on your screen. You will enjoy it.